So a few weeks ago, I did a thrift haul video, and in that video, I showed off a couple of granny square blankets, which I said I wanted to turn into something. This one in particular, I happened to mention that I wanted to make a long sort of calf length duster jacket, and after putting a bit of thought into it, I am now certain that that's the idea I want to go with. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with the other blanket, which is not next to me like I thought it was, so I can't show you right now. Before I can actually proceed to turning this into a jacket, the first thing I've got to do is unravel it. I spent an embarrassingly long amount of time the other day trying to find the end, and I have still... What is my cat doing now? Leave it, boo. One day I'm going to follow through on the cats aren't allowed in the craft room when I'm filming rule. Today is not that day, apparently. Behave. She's not going to behave. Where was I? Yes, I tried to find the end so I could unravel the border stitches from that point, but it has eluded me so far. I cannot see it. Whoever made this must have been world champ of weaving in their ends. Use the invisible finish, because I don't know where it is. I know if it was me personally, I probably would have started in the corner, but yeah, I can't find it. So I'm just going to pick a random spot. I'm going to snip away the yarn, and then I'm going to unravel the border first. Honestly, this blanket, it does seem fairly old. I think it's been well loved, so I don't know how cleanly this edge is going to come out anyway. A lot of the fibers have sort of got enmeshed within each other, I think. So I'll just salvage as much as I possibly can. That's the border deconstructed. Now I just have to unpick each of these individual squares. I'm probably going to get either my seam ripper or my scissors onto that, because unlike what I thought initially, these aren't actually stitched, either slip stitch or single crochet together. They are in fact sewn. So I don't think I'm going to be able to unravel that quite as easily as I did the border. When I first started this project, I thought unpicking each individual square was going to be the best way to go. But as I was slowly unraveling the border, it kind of occurred to me that that probably was going to be the most inefficient way to proceed with this project, because for many of these squares, I'm going to put them back together anyway in a specific configuration. So I thought, why not just unpick them in that specific configuration to begin with? It will save me a bit of assembly later down the line. So that's what I went ahead and did. I have here one panel, which is a square across, and this is just like the length of the blanket. I have a second panel of the same width and length, and then the third panel, which is larger. This one is 3 squares wide. And these 3 are going to make up my back panel. Come on, shoulder. Right, my back panel and my 2 front panels of my jacket. Like so. And I have a bunch of squares left over. We have Exhibit A here, and I haven't unpicked those yet just because I haven't settled on what I want to use them for. I might use them as a pocket, I might use them as a hood, I could potentially use them for sleeves. Not quite sure yet, but now that I have the squares I need to make up the torso of my jacket, I'm going to put this together. So I'll be sewing these across here at the shoulders, and then down the sides, leaving room for my arm, of course. And I will be using, to do that, the yarn that I unraveled from the border. and done. Up we go. Well, let's give this a try on. See how we're looking. And oh, okay. I think my hood is in the way a bit, but so far so good. I think plenty of room for my arms, and it's a nice length. It's kind of the length that I want it, which you guys can't really see, but it ends at, I'd say, about mid-calf, which is pretty much exactly where I wanted it to be. So kudos to whoever made this blanket. You made it the exact right length that I needed it. But what I will need to do is add an additional panel to the front here, because that's not gonna close up. I'm really gonna have to suck in the gut if I want that to work. But I will be adding an additional panel here, and to do that, let me grab out the rest of the blanket. What I'm thinking I will do, after I put my seat back so my head is not cut out of the frame, is I will separate another 2 columns from the remaining squares of the blanket. And that is going to be too long, because while this, how many squares is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So while this is 6 squares long, I'm only going to need 5, so they stop here. Then, in place of what would have been the 6 squares, I think I'm going to add a granny stitch triangle. And to make those, I will unravel the end square from each column that I remove, and then recrochet it into a triangle. That should work, right? So I'll have the squares up to here, and then the triangle, maybe this way, squares up to here, then the triangle here. I think that will give me a really good foundation for my jacket, but because I'm planning to do that, it will only leave me with 6 squares for the rest of the jacket, which is not going to be enough for the sleeves, though in fairness, I don't think I wanted the sleeves out of this anyway. It might potentially be enough for a hood, depending on how I construct it. But I did want pockets as well. We'll give that one a bit of thought. But for now, at least, I know I definitely want to add the additional front panels and the triangles at the top. So next step, taking the rest of the blanket apart. Oh, I better take a picture of these, hadn't I? Otherwise, I'm going to forget what colours we used and how many rounds they were used for. Light is so bright. It's only on like 10%. So I have unpicked and pinned, or stitch marked. Technically I've stitch marked them. I have stitch marked the 2 additional front panels together. And I also went ahead and crocheted myself the 2 triangles that I will need. So they're going to rest about here. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. So they'll sit there. And there is definitely a couple of bits in this jacket that I'm going to need to fix up, just because the yarn got so tangled when I was trying to unravel it that I had to cut some of it. So there are definitely some areas that I need to either get the glue on, or I don't know, needle felt it or something to stop it from unraveling, but that is a future problem. For now, I just want to crochet these panels together, and then I will add the triangles in as well. Once that's done, we're pretty much finished with the basic foundation of the jacket. It's just a matter of adding the details after that. amazing how quick a project comes together when you don't have to do the majority of the crocheting yourself. So anyway, I have my foundation of the jacket all done. I'm really liking how the triangles came together. But after doing all this, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares left. 2 of those will be set aside for pockets, which I'll probably sew on here-ish, which leaves me with 4. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know what to do with those remaining 4. I don't think 4 alone is enough to crochet like a hood. I could make additional squares, but I was considering just putting on a collar rather than a hood, and I don't really have any other ideas for what I could do with the 4 remaining squares. I suppose extra pockets are always a good thing. I could have 2 at the front, I could have 2 inside. That's not something I have to figure out right now though, because before I do that, I want to finish off the portions that I myself must crochet, which is going to be the sleeves for one. I'm going to put some ribbing up the side here, and I don't know yet if I want to do like ribbing on the bottom, so I'll leave that till last just in case I change my mind. The next thing I need to figure out though is with the sleeves, do I want to crochet solid color sleeves, or do I want to lean into the theme and go with multicolored? I'm concerned that if I go with the multicolored, it's just going to be too much, a little bit overwhelming in terms of colors. The solid could work, but then I go, is that too boring? And I'm facing the same conundrum with the ribbing too. Do I make it multicolored or do I go solid? Honestly, I'm leaning a little bit more towards solid at this stage, just so the squares remain the main focus of the jacket. But I can definitely see the appeal of doing multicolored. I don't know, maybe I'll flip a coin. But yeah, I'm kind of stuck. I'm fence sitting on this one. And I don't want to go and waste my time crocheting a bunch of stuff and then having to frog it if I don't like it. So I need to make the correct decision now. I was just about to start work on this, but inspiration struck, and I'm going to take things in a slightly different direction. I will, in fact, be adding a hood to this because I have 3 squares where I would work the hoodie onto, the 2 triangles at the front and the singular panel that's visible at the back, or it's visible at the back from the front, yeah, whatever, just this square here. That's what I mean. So I have those available, and I have 6 squares left. Now 2 of them I was going to use for pockets, but if I want pockets I can always crochet them myself later. Instead, I'll just split this in half. The first 3 squares I will attach to the corresponding squares on the jacket here. So the 2 triangles, this one here, which I was confused about what to call it before, and I will attach those like, let me grab my stitch markers. Just do a quick pin in place so you can get a feel for what I'm talking about. My new plan is to attach these first, these 3 squares I've just stitch marked in place. That's not going to be tall enough as a hood by itself. And even if I attach these 3 squares directly onto the first 3, I still don't know if that's going to be quite the right height. To address that, I will, after I have attached these first 3, I'm going to crochet myself several rows. I'll determine how many exactly I need, but several rows of just granny stitches across back and forth. And then on top of those, I will add the remaining squares, and hopefully that will get me to a hood that is the correct size. Or even if it's a little bit large, it doesn't matter too much because it's a hood and an exact fit doesn't exactly matter. But yeah, I think that could work. Surely in my scrap bag, I have some colors that would match these in here. And then using that same yarn, I can always crochet myself pockets at the end of this project. I've attached the first 3 squares and I went ahead and pinned the second lot on top of those. And I really don't think I'm going to need to add any granny stitches in between, because if I pinch this together, I mean, that's a decently sized hood together. I really don't need to make it any bigger than this, which means my next step will be to attach the last panel of squares to the first, and then I'm just going to fold the top in half like this. Oh, I just got a bit of fluff in my eye. Lovely. Fold the top in half like that, and then I'll single crochet or slip stitch it together along that seam. Alright, I've got to decide what colour I want to use for the ribbing of my jacket. I've been going back and forth, but there's nothing that really jumps out to me. I've picked out some neutrals first. I grabbed some creams, a grey, a white, and even a light brownish colour, but I can't say any of them really appeal to me. And then I was like, okay, maybe we'll go in the complete opposite direction. So from my scrap bag, I just grabbed a few of the the variegated yarns I have, and I thought perhaps I could use those, but honestly, I don't like that either, so I'm kind of stuck. I don't know what yarn to use. I reckon if I do go with the coloured ones, that might just be a bit much, especially since I'm still toying with the idea of doing the sleeves colourful. So that just leaves me with the neutrals. I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards the cream. I think that might be best just because it's the closest match to the yarn that's already been used for the outer border here. This is like the 12th time I've tried to film this bit because I keep getting interrupted. But anyway, I ended up ditching the cream and I crocheted my ribbing in grey. I think the grey, it just looks better. It's not probably the best choice out there, but it was the best choice that was available to me at the time. Can you not nudge that, please? Can you not? But it was the best choice that was available to me at the time. I didn't want to go out and buy a whole skein of yarn just for this little bit here. And you know what? I don't think it looks too bad. So the one advantage of the grey is that you can kind of pair it with almost anything. It's a bit like black in that way. So it doesn't conflict too badly with any of the colours in this jacket, which is kind of the reason I went with it. I mean, you can see it on the hood here too. I don't hate it, which is, I know, it's something, isn't it? But now that the outer part's done, so I've done the ribbing, I've done it all up the insides around the hood, and I've done single crochet just across the bottom here. Now that's done, all that remains to do is crochet myself the arms. And originally I was going to do that in double crochet, but now after having done everything else, put this thing together, I'm thinking I want to maintain the granny stitches and see how they work out in a sleeve. I've never really done granny stitch sleeves before, with the exception of a couple of hexagon cardies I wore, but I don't count that as really a full sleeve because you only need to do a couple of rows along your arm here. I'll grab my scrap bag, which is just there, and I will see if I can find yarn that matches these colours. And if I can't find exact matches, I will get them as close to matching as I can. And then I think I'm going to alternate between a coloured row and a row of either cream or white. I don't want to be using the grey I used for the ribbing in the sleeve itself because I will be using that at the end to make the cuff. And so the multicolours don't get too overwhelming, I want to break them up with either a cream or white that best matches this colour here. I do have a bit left from when I unwound the blanket. However, I don't know if that's going to be enough for 2 sleeves. And I also want to keep some of that spare just in case there's patches that I need to fix up in the cardigan itself. I've noticed a few already, which I have just slip stitched over to reinforce them. So I'm thinking I might use that cream that I frogged initially when I was doing this. Can you not grab that, please? That's not for you. That's not for you. You're so distracting. I don't remember what I was saying. So I'll try that cream, and if that doesn't work, I might switch it up to white. But yeah, I am reluctant to use the grey in this case. But you know, worst comes to worst, I might try it and I might like it. So there may be a bit more frogging in my future, but before I even start to worry about that or even start crocheting, I've got to find some colours I can use for my scrap bag. So that's what we're going to do next, Belle, isn't it? Are you going to help, or are you just going to sit there? You're just going to sit there and watch? You can be the supervisor. I think I'm going to struggle to match any of these colours. I might just have to use what I have. Perhaps it won't look too bad if the sleeves are the same. Even if they're different from the squares, the sleeves are still matching. Honestly, I can only hope that works. I don't have another option. I suppose I could crochet the entire sleeves in grey. Not another outro that I'm filming like a month after I finished the project and have forgotten all the important details that I wanted to tell you. Whoops. I have finished my blanket jacket and I love this thing. I'm so pleased with how it turned out. What I'm not so pleased with is the fact that it's almost 40 degrees here today, so I cannot wear this for a moment longer. I will have to model it. I will have to model it another day for you guys. Whew, I literally had it on for 20 seconds, if that, from that side of the room there, which is like 3 steps away, to here, and that was too bloody hot for me. But despite it being too hot to wear today, this thing, I think is going to be a staple in my wardrobe come the cooler months, because I really like this. It turned out so well, especially for me, having never attempted anything like this before. I'm really pleased with the outcome. It is a nice long jacket. It's down to almost my ankles, to be honest. Short kings rise up. And even the parts that I wasn't so, enthused about, such as like the ribbing and the colour for the sleeves, I think they worked out okay in the end. The sleeves, I did originally plan to have them be coloured stripes, but I just couldn't make any of the yarn that I had, the colours, work with what was already used. You'd think that wouldn't be too difficult, seeing as this is just like a mishmash of random colours, but all the colour combinations I tried, they just seemed like that little bit off, especially because the cream yarn that I have is just like a shade darker than the one used in the original blanket. And it just didn't look very good. So in the end, I did go with a solid colour for both each of the sleeves and the ribbing around the sides, and like I put a little bit on the bottom here. And I think that worked out well. I like how this looked. The grey is just a nice neutral. It doesn't clash too badly with any of the colours in the original blanket. So it all worked out for the best in the end. The one downside to the blanket jacket at the moment is because, and again, I'm not sure if I mentioned this throughout the video because it's been so long, but I think I did a couple of times. But because this blanket, it was visibly old and worn and just well loved, because of that, a lot of the fibers had just become like enmeshed. So when I was trying to unpick them, there were a few points where I had to cut the yarn because I could not frog it. It was just too tangled to do so. And in those spots, the structural integrity is, shall we say, lacking, which means there are a few areas that I will need to go back in and reinforce. And I've kept, where did I put it? I have kept like the remaining yarn I have left over from when I frogged the border of this blanket. So I will use that. It's like, here's an area. So I will just go in and reinforce them from the inside. It's hard to tell sometimes when the blanket's, I keep calling it a blanket, it's a jacket now, but when the blanket is just at rest, because obviously gravity and the weight of it, it doesn't show those more droopy areas. So when I'm wearing it, I'll have someone, my sister of course, just go around and pinpoint any like target areas that need a bit of reinforcement, and I will go over those. But yeah, aside from that, I don't think I have any complaints with this jacket. Normally I have a couple of like little criticisms, things I would do differently next time, but for once I can't really think of anything. I really like how this project came together. No, I lie. There is one thing I would change, and that would be to add myself some pockets. I ended up using literally all the squares from this blanket. There was none left over by the time I added the hood. So that sort of like kicked my plan for adding pockets out the window. And as I mentioned just before, the yarn I have didn't quite work with the rest of the jacket. So crocheting colourful pockets is a no-go, but that doesn't mean I can't, like at some point in the future, crochet myself a solid colour pocket or two out of this same grey yarn. It's just something I haven't got around to at this point. But other than that one thing, I am very happy with it. I'll have to show you in greater detail another day because it is just too bloody hot to do that today. But yes, very, very happy with my jacket. I imagine you'll be seeing me wearing this a lot during the winter, so be prepared for that. At least I have something that can give my black and neon rainbow jacket a break, because that was doing most of the heavy lifting in previous years. That and the Yarnivore jumper. I can add something else into the rotation now. Okay. Blanket aside, I'll make sure I get my modelling shots another day. But what we're not going to put off until another day is... And today's featured creator on the hookup is the Artistic Newfie, and she says, I'm an artist from Newfoundland, Canada, who loves to create art in many forms, including amigurumi. I wonder what those other forms of art are. Well, I guess if we want to find out, we'll have to go check out the Artistic Newfie's links, which should all be down in the description. Also in the description is a link to the hookup form if you would like to apply for yourself. Thank you all for watching this one. Give me your thoughts on the blanket jacket. Is this something you've done yourself? Have you ever taken a blanket or another crochet project, for example, and repurposed it? And if so, what did you make? Because I may or may not need ideas for the second crochet blanket that I have. That's something I'll have to think about over the next few weeks. But yes, thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, and I will see you in the next one.